They told me we need to put her under so her body can rest because if we continue the way we're going and she crashes, we lose her. And I didn't realize at the time that it would be the last time I talked to her. And part of me is like relieved that she had no fear. She was like, oh, okay, like she was so used to surgery. She's like, yeah, just give me the sleepy medicine, Mom. It's okay. Actually, at the time, I really wasn't worried. I was like, we're at the best hospital in the world. They're going to figure this out.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Bunny Hugs and Mental Health, a free safe space for people to share and learn from others' experiences with mental health and addictions. I'm Todd Redebaum, suicide attempt survivor and a recovering substance abuser. I am so incredibly grateful you are here today because this episode is, well, it's a doozy. I'm speaking with Kyla Thomson. She is the mother of Bella Brave. You may have heard of Bella. You may even follow her on TikTok. Bella does have 7.5 million followers at this point on TikTok, not to mention Instagram and all the other socials and stuff. Bella was a 10-year-old girl. She was born with rare diseases, and not just rare forms of rare diseases, including dwarfism. And this past summer, Bella passed away. It came to a surprise for many. I talked with Kyla about what it's like being a medical parent, raising one child in hospital, another one at home, just all types of things regarding her experience. And then, of course, we talk about TikTok and the passing of Bella. It does get very emotional at times, so maybe grab yourself some tissues. But it's not all sad. It's incredibly beautiful and heartbreaking. And I know it's hard to believe that you can feel both emotions at once, but that's exactly the emotions I felt speaking with Kyla. So without further ado, I give you Kyla Thomson.
It's, you'd think I'd be able to summarize this after almost 11 years, but I do my best every time I'm asked, because her medical life of 10, almost 11 years, she'd be 11 in December, was ever changing, ever discovering new conditions, rare disease that would take her Saskatchewan teams to ask Alberta teams that eventually needed to ask sick kids, which is like the number one pediatric hospital in the world. Thankfully, we have that here in Canada. But she had conditions that stumped them. And it's daunting that within the first 3 years of her life, she confused medical professionals from Saskatchewan and Alberta that had reached out to even children's hospitals in England, all around the world, California. And then when she turned 6 and we needed to start going to sick kids, still dealing with things that surprised them. So that's basically Bella's medical conditions in a nutshell, but more specifically.
So she was never actually diagnosed with anything?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So that's kind of like the overall gist of her rare conditions and what those rare conditions were, I did not know before she was born. Took about 2 years in total to figure all of them out, and then there was still more that we're waiting to understand if there's some that we missed. So she was born with a rare bowel disease, a rare immune system disease, and a rare form of dwarfism. And all three together have never been seen before. She had the rarest form of each in combination. So, yeah. So with her type of Hirschsprung's, it's colon, like it basically, when you have Hirschsprung's, it's a section of the end of your colon is just dead cells. Like it's like a blockage, doesn't work. Very like life-threatening. And so we realized that when she was just 3 days old because she hadn't pooped. She was eating, but she hadn't pooped, and her abdomen just kept growing and growing. And so she needed emergency surgery at 3 days old. And the surgeon knew right away that was Hirschsprung's. We just didn't know how bad it actually was. So And that was the main reason why we were in hospital the first 2 years consecutively of her life in Saskatchewan and in Alberta, because they kept taking chunks of her colon out, not realizing that there was still skipped sections of this dead cell disease, which is not common. So after 2 years and multiple surgeries, they'd realized, okay, she's got long segment Hirschsprung's, which is very rare. Less than 5% of people and children alone have this form of Hirschsprung's. They often had thought, okay, this is a real rare form of Hirschsprung's. After her entire colon was removed, uh, they believed it had skipped to her small bowel, which has also never been seen before. And that's when they started thinking, okay, maybe this is something else because Hirschsprung's is not seen in the small bowel. And then from there, still trying to figure it out, constant surgeries, constant issues. She was surviving off of IV nutrition, back and forth between like oral nutrition and IV nutrition. And then when she turned 6, her Calgary team had said, okay, you know what? We need some help. We're pretty sure her entire bowel is affected and she needs a bowel transplant, full bowel transplant. And that's when they sent us to Sick Kids and said, okay, we need you to assess her. The the stuff that happened before that was also life-threatening. So her diagnosis of SCID, which is severe combined immune deficiency, was her immune disease that is also very, very rare. And at the time, like she was born in 2013, Saskatchewan didn't have newborn SCID screening. We now do, thank goodness. If we had had the screening at the time of Bella being born, it would have saved her a year in hospital. Um, the we didn't know. So the whole time she's fighting this bowel disease, she also had no immune system. And so when we realized it, she was 11 months old, and that's a whole story, how we figured out she even had SCID. She had gone through 4 bowel surgeries, and babies born with SCID are not able to survive the common cold. Yet she survived bowel surgeries. So when her Calgary team realized she had SCID, they were like, we honestly cannot tell you how she's alive. It is really a miracle. Um, yeah. So, I mean, faith has been a huge part of our journey, of course, before, during, and after, and currently. I'm happy I can rely on my faith and, and actually hearing a medical professional say it's a miracle your child is alive is, uh, it it's hard to explain.
Validating?
It's like a bittersweet
Mm,
comfort, you know? Like, yeah, they realize these things happen and thank God because he's why she's alive. Um, and so we found out she had SCID at 11 months old because already in hospital dealing with bowel issues that are not fully resolving. Uh, and I feel a lump under her armpit that's like the size of a golf ball. And at the time, the physician, she was on oxygen. We didn't realize she was fighting the common cold. She needed oxygen, like liters of oxygen to fight the common cold. And we're like, what is going on? She's like, her bowels, her lungs, like what? And then I feel this lump. And thankfully, the pediatrician at the time was like, because they rotate every couple of weeks. And so a new one will come on and be like, okay, what are we dealing with this week? And thankfully, that guy had the quick initiative to get immunology involved and say, we need to biopsy this. This is not okay. Like she's fighting something we're not aware of. So they took her in for surgery. That surgery involved lung biopsy, like a bronchoscope, uh, biopsy of this enlarged lymph node. They put in a G tube. So it was like they arranged a whole bunch of things for the surgery to happen. And that's how we found out she had no immune system. And at that point, they had said, okay, we need to look for a bone marrow donor. My husband and I were not a match for her. So we had to look for an unrelated donor globally. Thankfully, that we found a 10 out of 10 match from a nurse in Germany. And Bella had her successful bone marrow transplant at she was 15 months old, so like a year. And
Man.
during this whole time, this is so hard to summarize. I'm sorry if I'm rambling. During
Yeah.
this whole time, she was born with dwarfism, and we didn't know what type, we didn't know how it would affect her. We just knew she was little, but she was fully proportionate. And so they genetics got involved, and they were like, all right, we need some help here because we can't figure out her form of dwarfism or how this will affect her. And they sent her full skeletal, like they called it a skeletal survey, I think. It was basically like x-rays of her full skeleton. Sent that to a CHH specialist in California who said it was very hard to diagnose her because she is so proportionate. And her form is called cartilage hair hypoplasia, omens. And it has a connection to
I would never
it.
remember these words. I'm so
No,
glad, like,
it's
Mike.
yeah. It's if any medical families are listening, they might, kind of understand a little bit. But basically it's dwarfism, but of the rarest form, which Bella, this is not new to Bella, right? Like she's like, yes, sign me up for everything rare, uh, and everything more rare than rare was
Right.
was
The
Bella.
rarest form of the rare.
Rarest form of the rare. That's me. That's me. I'm Bella. Um, and so he had said when he reported back, he's like, it was really hard to diagnose her because she's so proportionate, and typically there's lots of features with her type of dwarfism that she just didn't have. And the only way he figured it out was because he had dealt with this specific form of dwarfism for years. And looking at her full skeletal survey, had found that she had shortened bones just from her shoulder to her elbow and from her hip to her knees. So to just have those bones affected was really, really rare. So she often you wouldn't know um, between the ages of like, when she was born and like even up until maybe even like 4 or 5 years old, people would just think she was younger than she was. And
Right.
then she,
Hmm.
um, 3 years old, thinking she's under one, walking and talking in full sentences, people were like, what? So, um, she really had that genius mentality really pushed on her and given to her. I think that's maybe where she gets a lot of her, or she got a lot of her confidence from. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I
Wow.
think I summarized it kind of okay. But that's her medical
Yeah.
conditions.
I don't know too many families that have children that that are, you hear of people that have kids that either have cancer at a young age or some other kind of conditions, and they're in and out of hospitals and surgeries all the time. Like that must have been, what does that do to a parent? Actually, was she your firstborn?
Yes, Bella's. Yeah, Waylon is.
Okay.
He just turned 6. Yeah, Bella was my first, and
Because I mean, just being a new parent in general is a nightmare.
yeah,
Let
I
alone.
remember like the first 3 days in our Swift Current hospital was amazing. Like I had a great pregnancy with her. She was born. She started like eating right away, like drinking right away, and she was just so sweet and so petite and always wrapped in like little. And it was just like amazing. Um, I didn't experience like postpartum depression, nothing. It was like 3 days of bliss, and then bam, you're in the hospital, and this is the life you're living now. And so my body dealt with that shock, I think, for a lot of years. And because we didn't even get to come home, as the parent, I never had the mental health supports in the children's hospitals. It was all for the kids. Unless
Hmm.
I was able to take the time to book myself a doctor's appointment, drive to it, talk to the doctor, there was no way I was getting any mental health support. Even social work at the time of Bella's birth, like so much has advanced since 2013 in terms of like family centered care, which I'm so thankful for, but it was not there when Bella was born. And I did eventually, get home and be able to talk to a mental health nurse and get support that way and be diagnosed with complex medical PTSD, anxiety, get medications, get help. But like looking back, that first year in hospital was my body is still suffering from the shock of that year. Bella had suffered septic shock. We almost lost her multiple times. Um, in the course of 10 years, she suffered septic shock 4 times, maybe five. Like I lose count about traumatic experiences. She's had over 30 surgeries, and my body just had to hold all that in survival mode for so long that I never really got to process it until she was like 3 years old.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So when you talk about your body being affected, what does that look like?
I I mean, the way we lived in hospital for that first year, I always think of the first year as kind of like what it took me to transition into like a medical mom and really change my mindset. Um, it was like survival mode, um, angry, depression. Like I couldn't even go outside and see another parent being able to hold their kid because mine was attached to the cords, locked inside a hospital room, couldn't actually eat, tortured with IVs, tubes, surgeries. It was hard to even just like walk outside her hospital room. Like I I literally I couldn't sleep. So I'd wake up, my body was just like depleted, like, shrinking and depleted. And thankfully I have and still have an amazing support system, like family and friends that would drive miles to see me, sit down and talk to me, make time for me, and that really helped. But not knowing how to process it and then not being able to process it for like years later definitely affected me mentally and physically. Huge.
Hmm.
And it's like I'm still grieving, the fact that my brain is like doing things to protect me. You know what I mean? Like memory
Yeah.
loss, that sort of thing is like it's so frustrating because I know it's like a physical effect of this trauma.
Right.
So, yeah,
Well, they say, what's that book? The body keeps the score or holds the score. Yeah, the trauma is stored in your body, and your body reacts as a defense mechanism.
yeah,
And so when you're out of fight and flight mode, it's still doing those things. I can only imagine just how frustrating that would be, and how frustrating it would be to see young parents walking around with their healthy kids, and that must have brought up a lot of resentment and
yeah.
like you said, anger. Like who are you angry at? Just God, the world, just everything. Just
Yeah, I would say it was just an anger. I never put an anger on anybody. Um, it was more or less just like seeing my child suffer was just like,
right.
oh God, like make this stop. And then it never stopped. It just continued on. We get breaks, but it was like after that first year, I realized, okay, she is living with rare disease. This is not just gonna stop. I need to learn how to support her while we live with this because it's not just going away. And I think after that first year was when I really was able to be strong enough to make that mindful transition and be like, okay, I need to stop anger. I need to stop complaining because I lived in hospital for a year and that gave me time to see and be with other medical parents around me. And I would see single parents handling a medical complex child. I didn't have to do that. I would see parents lose their child and have to go home without them. That didn't happen to me. So seeing that physically, like in the same premises, same hospital room as them, changed me. And it took a year to see that happen over and over again for my mind to be like, okay, you need to change the way you're thinking. You need to change your mental state because you do not have it as worse. Like you don't have it as bad as some of these other parents and that just really changed the way I thought about things. And then of course, Bella being the way she is changed how I looked at things. Like she could go through stuff and bounce back with a smile on her face. And I'm just like, you do not have to, you have every right to be angry, sad, upset. Like, I got supports for you, hospitals got supports for you. And she'd be like, I'm fine. Let's go to school. Let's hang out with a friend. Let's FaceTime grandma. Like, let's go to the child life, painting time down the hall on unit 3 with, my oncology friends. Like, she was never um depressed. She was never angry about having to go back to hospital because so many times, even when we did get home, she would have to go back again and again and again. And she would look forward to it. She had this strength and this bravery that is who she is. And that also made me think, okay, like, whoa, like I need to be her support. I'm not bringing her down. Like she's the one going through it. So
Hmm.
buck up and change your face because this is the ride we're on. you know?
Wow. Oh
Yeah.
man, my heart goes out to you. That would be, I don't know if I would be able to do it or not, or I mean, yeah, it, yeah, I mean, I guess in a way she doesn't know any better. This is just how life is. But as a parent, knowing that life can be much better for her, it would be hard to kind of, I don't know, reprogram your brain into like,
Yeah.
this is just how it is. And I guess I have to just go with the ride. I don't know if that
Yeah.
made any sense, but yeah.
No, it does. It does. It totally makes sense because, yeah, I knew what life was outside of a hospital, and that's all she ever knew. So she's like,
Yeah.
"What's your problem, Mom? This is my life. I'm happy." And I think
Yeah.
a lot of it, because she spent the first 2 years in hospital, and that was her first home, and it was all she knew. It took away fear. Where a lot of kids, I think, that don't know a hospital, they never seen a hospital and then have to go there. There's a lot of fear. Where she never had that. And I think it's because she basically, she grew up there. She grew up in a
Right.
hospital and that was familiar to her.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it would be much harder for you
Yeah.
because you do have to like deprogram yourself almost and
Yeah.
reprogram yourself.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's almost like, well, I don't know. I was gonna make an analogy, but it was probably bad, so it doesn't matter. um,
It's okay. I
and
do
then,
that
then
all
you're
the
also,
time. You
and
should hear
then,
me. You should
pardon
you
me.
should hear me talk to my husband sometimes. I'll be like, out of the blue, I'll be like, what about this? And I'll say something completely random. He's just like, no. Yeah. I got to a point where like when I started seeing a mental health nurse, and my doctor helped refer me to her, it was definitely more anxiety related. And it was like fear of dying, not in a suicidal sense, but in like almost a hypochondriac sense. Um, I would have heart palpitations, like the stress was just physically affecting me that I thought I and I had everyone telling me you are under so much stress. This is rare. You're dealing with things that no one has to deal with. So I'm just thinking my my body is trying to tell me that this is not okay. Is it just gonna like cop out on me one day because I'm not listening to it? And so that fear of like passing out, having a heart attack, all the things that are related to anxiety, like paralyzed me. I couldn't leave the house. I'd be calling my husband at work, like scared that I was going to faint. I couldn't drive. It was like debilitating. Like you had said, like I couldn't actually function. And
Right.
that's when, I was like, okay, I got medications for that and talk therapy for that. And that really helped me. But in terms of like ADHD, it's more or less like I get super overwhelmed when I have more than like two things on the go. I constantly am making lists and then lists of those lists. It's like, okay, I got to do this now. I got to do this later. I got to eventually get this done. Wait, I need to vacuum, feed the fish, go over to feed the fish, pick up the sock, start doing laundry. So I think TikTok has also diagnosed me because I see constant jokes about this exact scenario on TikTok, and I'm like, oh, do I laugh or is that me? Like, what do I, yeah.
That was partly me. It was TikTok and Instagram posts, and then I was at a family reunion, and all my cousins and people were talking about their ADHD, and I was like, okay, I gotta get this figured out, and
Yeah.
yeah. But anyway, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, if and the thing is, like, people are still learning about ADHD, and I'm still
Yeah.
learning about ADHD, and it's like, oh, some of the stuff I never even considered were symptoms or things I
Yeah.
do. It's like, no, that's also part of it. It's yeah, it's pretty fascinating actually, and it's validating, and it connects a lot of dots for me anyway. But anyway, we went, we were just on a little ADHD side quest there
Yeah.
for a sec.
Hopefully it helps someone else, you know? Okay.
Yeah. Back to your wacky adventures.
Yeah.
Oh, COVID. So
Oh,
you
yeah.
actually had to, like, dealing with all this stuff in hospital and stuff, and then a pandemic happens. That must have been extra stress. It's like now we're in and out of hospitals all the time anyway, and now she has no immune system or it's very weak, and then COVID. That must have been another wacky few years for you.
You know what? I don't know if this will shock you, but I love talking about COVID because I have the opposite experience that everyone else had. But I love talking about it because it is a massive eye opener to what I had to deal with, what my family had to deal with from 2013 all the way to 2019, 2020. That was we were living the COVID life before COVID. So when COVID
Oh,
happened, I was like, "Oh, good. People now understand why I go to the park and I Lysol the swing before Bella gets on it. They understand why I Lysol the table at McDonald's before we sit down to eat. They get it now. They're finally going to get it and stop looking at me like I'm crazy because my child is immune compromised. So it I was relishing in the world recognizing what medical families already deal with, the fear that was in our lives from day one of having Bella. And in a sad way, I was kind of like, good, now you get it. Now you freaking get it. But I didn't go a negative route because by that time I was like, okay, I have a large Instagram following. And I'm like, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to educate and not put fear in anyone. I've never wanted my socials to put fear in children or parents or medical families. And I'm a teacher by trade. So it was like, okay, we got to take this opportunity to educate. And so I really used COVID as that. I mean, I love memes, I love jokes, I love comedy. So it was like, all right, let's share this in an easy to digest way. But when you get the picture, this is what medical families deal with, especially immune compromised kids. Like I was already, working with Bella's immunologist about how we can just even get her to public school safely. And that involved, meetings with her teacher, um, getting supports to buy the classroom an air purifier, masks before masks were a thing, Bella knowing hand washing and um, all of the things that were put in place with COVID. I had boxes of medical gloves and masks before everyone was running to the grocery stores, and
and
they were
toilet paper.
already, yeah, they were already hoarded in my closet from being a medical parent. So
Hmm.
it honestly didn't scare me. It made me relieved because people in public places were now um, being careful and understanding what immune compromised people go through. Like I Bella and I lived in isolation before, during, and after her bone marrow transplant for 200 days. And so that was where um, nobody could enter her hospital room without being fully gloved, gowned, masked, booties. And on top of that, no other family members but me and my husband. So it was like when people started crying and complaining that they couldn't go outside to play at the park, I'm like, listen, I just had to keep my own child away from their grandparents for almost a year because it could kill her, like any cold, any tiny little virus, COVID, you know what I mean? So I was really just relieved that people could understand how to protect people like Bella. And that was really why um, I was happy, that that information got out to the world and it was less work on me. I would go to the grocery store with her and I would be sanitizing the cart and I had so much fear instilled in me, but I didn't want to keep her in a box. She hadn't even experienced the world. So also I'm a mom. I need to take my kid to get groceries. I can't leave her at home alone. She's 3. So like I would be trying to get groceries and 2 aisles down, if I heard someone cough, I would almost pee my pants in fear because that is something that could kill my child. And a lot of people, wouldn't realize, like, yes, I had multiple conversations with my doctors about when and where I could take her out. And public grocery store was a long wait. Like, so just the fact that I could actually get there at one point in our lives was a big accomplishment. So I wasn't going to have that be the time where things go downhill. She catches a cold and then she's back in hospital because that's what that would mean for us. So it's like I lived with that fear that so many experienced during COVID for like how many years? 13, 14, 15,
6
16,
years
17,
before that.
6 years before everyone did. Um, yeah, the trauma already ran its course on me, and I was just like, okay, people are gonna get it now.
Yeah.
Introducing the timely children's book, Sometimes Daddy Cries. The visually stunning book is told through the eyes of a boy whose father suffers from depression. He sees his dad get sad, rest, and even go to the hospital, all while comparing his father's depression to a physical ailment. Sometimes Daddy Cries is getting rave reviews from parents and mental health professionals alike. One critic has stated, "This is a timely and important book that will help countless fathers and sons broach the subject of depression." An Amazon customer commented, "An excellent book to open up a conversation with a young child about depression in a parent." Sometimes Daddy Cries is available in hardcover and paperback on Amazon.ca and Amazon.com.
This episode is brought to you by Etsy.
Oh.
Hear that?
Okay. Thank you.
Etsy knows these aren't the sounds of holiday gifting. Well, not the ones you're hoping for. You want squeals of delight, happy tears,
How did you?
and spontaneously written songs of joy.
I am so happy. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, the song needs a bit of work, but anyway, to get those reactions, make sure everyone on your list feels heard with handmade, handpicked, and designed gifts from small shops on Etsy. Gifts like personalized jewelry, custom artwork, cozy style items, vintage pieces, and home decor to celebrate all of your favorite people and their specific kind of special. For original gifts that say, "I get you," Etsy has it.
And in a way, the world is actually safer for her because everybody's so hyper diligent with it that you're like, well, this is actually nice. At what point did you start having the social media and having Bella become this international princess?
Yeah. Our social media is always a fun topic. Like talking about the way it formed over time is always good. So the way it started with my Facebook. Uh, and I mean, I had Instagram when she was born, but it was like I wasn't used to using it. My social media skills have definitely evolved. And but the main reason I actually started with a blog. I had my help of my husband to create. I started a blog post on blogspot.com. I don't know if anyone ever remembers
Never heard
blogspot.com.
of it.
Um, it's still there if you want to like search it. But I started blogging and Facebook blogging when Bella was in hospital, like when she was born, basically because we were away from home in hospital, could not see family and friends like everyone else could, right? So it was my only form of communication with family and friends that wanted update on their niece, their granddaughter, their friend, like their cousin. Um, so Facebook was my outlet, and my blog was my journaling, my outlet. And I started that as a form of communication with family and friends, and I learned that okay, this type of journaling, sharing this information is helping me, but I also started to see it help other people, help other families. I started to find other medical families in similar situations, and we could help each other. So it really, really became a big source of support for me. Um, and from there, I I started learning how to use Instagram. So then I would be using like Instagram and Facebook and journaling and sharing Bella's medical journey because, you know, there is just so many people that don't know what the inside of a hospital even looks like, let alone what some people have to go through. And um, I also found sharing our journey online helped me where people would send me message and be like, your story has touched me in this way, or your story has helped me in this way. And that in turn helped me emotionally and mentally too. Just knowing that I could help others by sharing our story kind of solidified that, okay, I'm doing something right here. You know, as painful as our journey is, I'm helping myself and I'm helping others by sharing what we're going through and being, in a sense, brave enough to do that. On the other end, as I learned Bella's rare disease and what they meant for her and her needing to be tube fed, have an ostomy, have a central IV, me eventually needing to learn how to use all these medical devices on my baby in order to get her home. That sort of training was not only rare and new to me, but very unseen in the world. So sharing about that helped me. And what I was most worried about, and the main purpose I wanted to share on my socials is when Bella, I knew eventually she would get out of hospital and go into this quote, quote, normal world. And I didn't want her to be bombarded with questions. I didn't want her to go out into this world and have everyone be like, what's wrong with her? Why does she look like that? Why does she have this? What does this do? And just bombard her with questions. I wanted them to be fully aware the minute she stepped outside of that hospital so she could just go and be like, hang out with her friends, go to school, and have a life where people understand what she's been through before they talk to her. And that was my main goal. I was like, okay, I don't want her overwhelmed. I want people to understand her journey so they can support her better. And that was a big, like probably the biggest reason why I wanted to share online. Yeah.
So then TikTok came along, you started that account, and everybody fell in love with Bella, basically. Yeah, what is it, over 7 million?
7.5 million on TikTok currently. That's a fun story. I want to come up with a better word than say fluke, but it's a fun story to tell how I started TikTok. And then, of course, I already had my Instagram and Facebook established, and TikTok just kind of like ignited a whole new audience. And the way I started TikTok was because, so first of all, I was like, I had enough on my plate. 2020. I don't need any more apps. I was one of those people. But my friend, one of my best friends that lives in Swift Current, she is like, we call her Grandma Brooke. And she not only started her own TikTok account, but she did a famous TikTok dance. And I'm like, listen, if Grandma Brooke knows how to use TikTok and post, I need to get on this app because I can't be outdone by my friend who's like 90. So, so that was my motivation. Then
Competition.
so it's COVID. So Bella is in grade 2 and we're at home and her teacher is at the school online. So it's all online learning. So I set up her little desk and we kind of basically have her little classroom set up and she's doing an assignment and she's drawing a picture of a fox for this assignment. So we're going to bring back her fox drawing on some of our Bella Brave merch soon. I don't have it. I just have our logo on right now, but you'll see it soon. It's her famous fox drawing. And that is what kicked off our viral moment. So I'm sitting down and I'm literally sitting on my bed behind Bella. She's like working on her assignment. I'm like, all right, TikTok, let's figure this out. So I literally just I took a video of her drawing because I was like, okay, I need video of something. So I took a video of her drawing, brought my phone back to me, and I'm like, all right, how do I post this? I don't even think I wrote a caption. I went with the music that TikTok suggested, which is like the spinning monkey one, I think it was, or the black cat. I forget what it's called. Just a cute little song. Suggested it. Okay, let's do that one. Pressed post. Boom. Million overnight. And I'm like, well, and the reason I found that out, I don't know, because I just pressed post, put my phone down, went to bed. Or went on with my day and then went to bed. In the morning, I wake up to an Instagram message from Halsey, the singer.
I don't know
She's
what that is.
famous singer. Halsey, she's collaborated. She's on that song East Side. It's one of Bella's favorite songs. She used to date G-Eazy. Anyway, she's like this world famous pop star.
I'm an old man. I don't know what the hell. Okay.
Google Halsey. You'll anyway.
Okay.
I get this message from this massive celebrity, and she's like, Bella's TikTok came across my feed. I jumped over to your Instagram and I started scrolling through your whole medical journey and understanding what she's been through. And then Halsey herself has also had a long medical road that she's recently just shared with the world. But it's like she's had a lot of issues with rare disease as well. And she was just going on this message that she wanted to send Bella a care package that, just this heartfelt, awesome message. And the reason why it came across her feed and everything is because it went viral of Bella drawing this fox. And so from there, I was like, okay, we have over 1 million followers now on this platform. I think my Instagram was at 900 people at this. I'm just like, oh, what do I do? This is... you don't want to screw that up. You have 1 million people watching you now. How are you going to use that purposefully? Right?
You dance around and lip sync while wearing a bikini like all the kids do.
Oh, no.
Is that what you did?
No.
Oh.
Wrong.
Oh, okay.
No, wrong.
Maybe that's what I'm doing wrong.
So, we're in Canada. I didn't realize that there would be opportunity to monetize. We don't get the opportunity to monetize on just video views like the States do.
Right.
So that definitely was not my motivation. My motivation was, all right, I got 1 million eyes on me now. How can I help, other medical
2 million eyes, because everyone has 2 eyes. Generally speaking.
Right. That's right. 2 million eyes.
Sorry.
Technically. All their eyes. Well, what if someone has an eye disease and they actually only have 1 eye?
Right.
Pirate?
We'll say Okay, 1.9 million eyes.
1.9 million eyes. So I had a pretty established Instagram account, so I thought, with my 900 people. But I mean, my focus was already like sharing like our medical journey. So I was like, all right, Bella. And so Bella was, grade 2 at the time, so she fully understood what this meant. And I'm like, all right, if we're gonna do this. And at this point we loved watching TikToks. That was what we used TikTok for. We would watch like funny cat videos, and that was like our entertainment. And so I was like, all right, Bella, if we're gonna make TikToks, they need to have a good purpose behind them. Let's share joy. She loved being funny. I was like, yes, we got to make funny ones. Instagram was more of like journaling, information, that sort of thing. And TikTok was like, all right, this is where we're going to share the funny parts of our days. And so that's really how we started, was just like having fun with it. She produced a lot of our TikToks. She came up with the ideas. She's like, all right, Mom, let's do this. This is what we're going to do. She would edit them with me. And she really did an amazing job with a lot of our TikToks. And I just really happy that I had a good purpose behind it with her, because, later on, like TikTok, you get the trolls, you get the people on there sharing fear and hate and like ugly kind of comedy. And I was like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do good things with this app. We have a lot of people on here, and we have a lot of people we can help. And that led to opportunities for us, like her ambassadorships with RMHC Canada, working on collaborations with like SaskTel, SGI, that sort of thing. And it really provided us with a lot of opportunities.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I love that it was like, it was your guys' way to connect and have something in common, and as opposed to her just playing video games while you watched your stories or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Just scrolling for hours.
Yeah, exactly. Did you ever get any, well, I'm assuming with 7 million people that at some point you got comments that were like people like just being like, you're abusing her by putting her on here, or, I'm trying to think of like the opposite of what I'm thinking.
No, yeah, I should laugh, but it is that comical, like that people are so, that was like a main conversation that Bella and I had all the time. I was like, look, some people on this app aren't supposed to be on here, like young kids that are not 18 yet. She always knew she couldn't have her own account. It always was through me. She really knew the ins and outs. I was like, there's going to be people in here, we call them trolls, and they're going to say things that are just mean because they want to spark an argument. They want to get more likes. They want to get more views. They're just trying to benefit themselves. But really, I would tell her, I'm like, it's like a robot behind the computer screen. You don't know them. They don't know us. They have no meaning. Ignore, move on, be the bigger person, delete, forget, move on. Like that was our mentality. Of course, me running the account, I would see all of it, but she wouldn't.
Good.
If we ever got like a lot of like, there's times where some videos I would have to like turn off the comments because it was just like ridiculous. Like sometimes things go viral because the amount of comments and then the arguments between your kind-hearted followers and then the trolls would go on and on and on. And it's like, okay, no, let's just delete that. But I would never do more than that. I was like, I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. So it would be like, I know these people are not, some of them aren't even real. And, if you go to their page, it would be like one post, user 529027. And I'm just like, yeah, this is, I don't have time to do it.
That's most of my followers.
Yeah.
I swear like, half my followers are bots.
Yeah. I always said, I was like, all right, if I'm going to put time and energy into this, I'm going to put that into the people that care, the people that have been here, the followers that are here for the right reasons. That's where we're going to put our time and energy into. And the other ones, it's like delete and forget. it also made me realize, like, I was kind of sad too that TikTok doesn't do a better job of that. Like Instagram too. Instagram's not great with reels. Um, I mean, some of the comments on there doesn't take a genius to be like, whoa, that should not be online. And I'm like, I don't know why they've never gotten better at that. They just like expect you to deal with it. But I'm like, some of the comments and some of the dark side of TikTok, I'm like, how are they not like banning these people or like deleting their accounts? That always boggled my mind. But I just never gave it the time of day. And also being a medical mom and for being in the medical world for so long, I really have a tough shell. So none
Hmm.
of those comments ever affected me mentally or emotionally. These are not human beings. And even if they are human beings, they're not human beings to me if they're going to say things like that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's their problem, not mine.
Yeah. That's a them
Yeah.
problem. Yeah.
Well, I heard rumors you wouldn't feed her for days unless she performed. Like, perform! No, I'm kidding.
No, it was the opposite way. Bella would be like, Mom, TikTok now. Stop eating your sandwich. Get in the living room. I got a TikTok idea. And I'm like, wait a minute. Just let me finish this bite. Now.
Perform,
That was,
Mom, perform.
that was how it went. That was how it went. Mom, put this on. I got a TikTok idea. Wait, what? Why?
Wake up.
Because she knew I managed the account. There was no way we were making one unless, I set things up like the Ring camera or like the lights or like turned my phone on. Like, I have my passcode for a reason. Like,
Okay, so now we're kind of near present day of everything that happened, and I don't really know, and I purposely didn't find out what ultimately happened to Bella and what caused her to pass away.
yeah. So it's we're still waiting for her specialist from Sick Kids to give us a call with the full like autopsy report. As far
Oh,
as
okay.
yeah, so as far as I know, I believe it's unrelated to her bowel transplant. I'm fairly sure that her specialist had talked to me about that and said that they do not believe it's related to her bowel transplant. They believe it's more related to maybe her immune system, her bone marrow transplant. It's all very, I mean, she dealt with rare disease and possibly a disease that we hadn't even seen or heard of yet. But what had happened was she had her successful bowel transplant in August 2023. She not only did that transplant go exceptionally well, like the match, her donor, 4-year-old little boy named Waylon Sam from Ontario was her match. I've come to know his family. They're amazing. He was the most perfect match. Her surgery, like bowel surgeries are not common. They're very, very hard to come by.
Never heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so uh they were preparing us for like a 15 to 20 hour surgery and Bella's was 8. Uh
Dang.
very, very quick because it went that well. She recovered exceptionally fast. Within hours of coming out of recovery, she was asking to eat and drink. We had to like slow her down because she's like, "Hey, I'm ready to eat and drink." Like she looked forward to that bowel transplant. She knew what it would do for her. It was the first time in her life she had 9 months of like no pain. She had lived for 10 years with pain from this disease, and it was finally gone because she got her bowel transplant. Like her dream had come true. And we always talk about that being like the best 9 months of her life. The part that is really, really upsetting for me and sad is 3 years, when Sick Kids said, okay, she needs this transplant or she's not going to survive the next 5 to 10 years. This transplant meant, it was her gift of life. That meant my kid was going to see, she was going to have the rest of her life to live, right? Not, this bowel transplant meant she will survive. And so to have something most likely unrelated cause her to die is so heartbreaking and in ways I can't even describe. She, um, we we found her twice. We found her unresponsive and had to call 911. Um, and what I know what happened now is like her lungs failed. What we didn't know when we had to call 911 was that she had so much CO2 built up that she was unconscious but still breathing, like still alive. So when we got her to the hospital, they were able to, give her oxygen and she was okay. The first time that happened, they thought it was related to a virus. They did blood work and everything, and she was in hospital and in Patterson's for like a week and out, home, back to school. That was in March. And then in May, it happened again. And again, they took us to Patterson's, but this time they couldn't get her off oxygen. They did test after test after test. Nothing was coming back positive. Yet she was needing 1 to 2 liters of oxygen. And she'd kind of come down and then she'd go back up and it was just like, what is going on? Like, so then we were there at Patterson's for a couple weeks and they're like, all right, if this is anything related to her bowel transplant, which for a while they were like, okay, she developed this rash. They're like, all right, is this GVHD? Is this an immune reaction? Are her immune systems fighting? Because when you have a bone marrow transplant, the reason you have that is like her old immune system was like weeds in her body causing problems. You take that out with a week of chemo, give her a bone marrow transplant, she has a new immune system. With Bella, she had some complications and basically her B cells, like her infection fighters, never really fully developed. She had virus fighters, 100% of those. She could fight viruses, but then her infection fighters were not there. So they were worried, like, okay, is there something to do with her B cells? And she was on all these post-transplant medications from her bowel transplant. Are her steroids not high enough? Because you're on medications for the rest of your life. Of course, a lot less than she had dealt with. But anyways, it was very confusing for her need of oxygen. So they get us to sick kids, and she's still up and down with the oxygen requirements. But again, she has this consistent fever and these bouts of like high CO2 levels. They couldn't figure out the fevers. There was no blood work suggesting any sort of infection. They did a lung biopsy, they did MRIs, they did CTs, they did every test you could think of and could not figure it out. So it got to a point where one day her oxygen continued to increase and continued to increase. And the issue at the time, she had something else going on where I think it was related to her CMV, which is another type of virus that we all have. But in her case, having 2 transplants, it caused some issues. So they were like, okay, well, if we give her too many steroids to help figure out fight whatever her lungs are dealing with, it could actually go the opposite way and cause her to die. But if we don't give her the steroids and we don't figure out what's going on, it was just like, what do we do? What do we do? And so they continued to support her and monitor and do biopsies and take tests. And it was a lot of like waiting on this. While we were waiting on some tests, her oxygen increased so badly that she ended up on high flow, like 100% oxygen, which is what they call like BiPAP or CPAP. I forget which one. It's BiPAP or CPAP, but it's where she has this full oxygen mask and then she's in the ICU. And still, just having the best pediatric team in the world at Sick Kids not be able to help fix your child is the most horrible feeling. Um, she continued to show them how rare and strong she was. I remember being in the ICU and her specialist in the hallway discussing what to do. And I go out there and they're like, they were discussing putting her under, right? Because at any point they explained to me, she's on so much oxygen right now that we don't know how she's sitting up playing on her iPad. This is not the amount of oxygen she's on. Kids are not sitting up. They are out. So we are just like, what do we don't see this. And so they told me we need to put her under so her body can rest, because if we continue the way we're going and she crashes, we lose her. So they told me, they were like, we need you to prepare for this, because if we keep letting her go the way she is, she could just crash any minute and we can't help her. So they had said, it's safer if we put her under, let her body rest, put her on breathing support, like intubation, let her body rest while we figure this out. So she doesn't crash and we lose her immediately. So, she had that morning and that day, and they had to put her under. And I didn't realize at the time that it would be the last time I talked to her. And part of me is like relieved that she had no fear. She was like, oh, okay, like she was so used to surgery. She's like, yeah, just give me the sleepy medicine, Mom. It's okay. Like, I'm thirsty. But we talked about like, okay, when you wake up, we'll have lots to eat and drink. I had this like, always this like positive with her. I never wanted to show fear. And actually at the time I really wasn't worried. I was like, we're at the best hospital in the world. They're going to figure this out. So I had said, you know what? They're just going to put you under. They're going to help your lungs. And we're going to get out of here and go home. And so I really also wasn't worried at the time. I wasn't thinking, oh God, I'm never going to be able to see her again. Like, I was like, oh, we're at Sick Kids. They're going to figure this out. She's going to be put under for like the 40th time. We're used to that. So I'm relieved that she didn't have fear, like she didn't have any fear. She's like, yeah, this is just another day. I get my sleepy medicine and wake up feeling better. But it's always just really hard knowing that that was really the last time I got to talk to her, because her lungs just continued to get worse and continued to fail. And they had tried everything. Like at that point, they gave her the highest dose of steroids. They were like, if this doesn't work, like, we had a whole meeting, Lyle and I, with our whole team, like 10 ICU specialists and her bowel transplant team. And they were like, we're going to do all the things. And so after all the attempts that they made, her body was still like, I'm done. Her heart slowed down and her lungs just gave out. And that was 6 days after they put her under. Yeah.
Man.
So we're still waiting.
That's so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
In a weird way, I'm also very grateful that you got to have the time you did with her.
Yeah.
That the world did. I mean, 7 million people followed her.
Yeah. It was really hard trying to, like, I had so many people that shared so much love with us. It was like, I have to break their hearts. I can't keep this from them. There are like love and our support and our like, in our internet family. And it hurt so bad having to break their hearts as well. But I knew that I couldn't just hold that in. So I just, I took time to put that out there in a little like personal message from me so that, people could understand that she gave it her best fight. And we love everyone that sent us messages and kind letters and cards, and that the world will still share her legacy and keep that going because Bella has always wanted to help other little kids that are in the same situation. Her best friends were her hospital friends, and it means a lot that people still talk about her to us. Yeah.
It's just incredible. I mean, how's your husband taking all this? Because I know he's not,
Yeah.
Quite often there's one person out of the couple that's kind of out of the limelight.
Yeah, he's there's so many parts that are hard on him. Like, yeah, I had to give up my career and give up, my life to be in hospital with my child, but I couldn't have done that without him being home, taking care of our animals, our acreage, his job, keeping everything running back home so that we had a life to come home to when we would leave hospital. But that also meant for him less time with his daughter, right? Like when we were in Saskatoon or in Calgary and then Toronto, like that's hours out of his day and to travel there and see his daughter for like a small amount of time. And that weight on him has been massive. And so to see him kind of start, that journey with mental health support in a completely different way than me, is heartbreaking in a sense too, because it's like, like I want to help him, but he's also handling this a lot different. He has a completely different perspective. He has like so much guilt
Different
for so
journeys.
many different reasons,
Yeah.
So he has a good doctor that's been making sure he gets the supports that he needs. We started grief counseling together and making sure we get all the things in order that we need. Yeah.
And then there's your 6-year-old son too. I mean, that must be a whole other journey for him yet, seeing in a whole other perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. I never had to experience loss like this. Like, I didn't have any, even as a child, my sister is still alive, right? Like, I have never had to lose a sibling. My husband's never experienced that type of loss either. So we're very thankful for the hospitals, giving us so many supports for him. Uh, we had we were gifted a lot of activity books and reading books specifically tailored for like kids his age that help him deal with sibling loss. I have a friend in Toronto who actually works, she does social work, so she works with a lot of like broken families and kids without parents and kids that experience loss. And she really helped me um, before going. She drove us to the airport and she helped give me some advice on how to bring it up to Waylon and talk to him about it because he was at home with grandma and grandpa when my husband and I got home and had to, break his heart with that news. Yeah.
Christ. Well, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I
He's
yeah.
he's just been he's 6, but my goodness, he understands things in such a mature way. He really is like he's so healing to my heart. Like that sounds cliche, but I'm really proud of him and how he remembers his sister every day. There's not a day that goes by that he doesn't talk to her, uh, knowing she's in heaven, knowing she can't come back. Uh, he kind of like to like lighten the mood a little bit. Uh, this weekend, um, I was putting him to bed on Friday, and I was just having a hard day. Like sometimes I just like cry out of nowhere, whatever memory comes up and just makes me cry. And I think he's kind of used to it, but he still gets it. And I put him to bed. We're like reading stories, and we were he was telling me like a happy story, and he was like looking at the wall and like putting his hand on the wall, and I'm like in my shirt trying to hide this, like I'm just like bawling. And he ends up noticing, he turns over, ends up noticing that I'm crying, and he looks at me and he's like, oh no. He's just like, oh no. He puts his little hand on my forehead and just like, Mom, he's like, here, my stuffy puppy will wipe your tears away because he's soft. And I'm just like, ah, like just like crying even more. But that's like the way he is, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so he's
That
just been
must have been a tough decision to try for another child when you had him.
Gosh, that's a whole other story. You got another hour?
I mean,
I got things to do today. It's 11:19.
Okay. Just say yes, it was hard.
Yes.
Okay.
But I mean, Waylon, Bella was 5 when he was born. It took a lot of support from our genetics team too, because we wanted to have another child, but we wanted to have one safely, because we knew that there was a 1 in 4 chance our next child could be affected. So Lyle and I are both carriers of this recessive gene, super, super random rare. They call it a spontaneous gene mutation, and we both are carriers. And that's why Bella was born with what she has. And it is so uncommon and so rare that in the beginning they had to do blood work and tests to make sure Lyle and I weren't related. That was fun.
You're like, fingers crossed, come on. Okay.
We are not.
Well, congratulations on that.
But, you know, in order to have another child, there was a lot of things we had to go through to do that safely. And we always wanted a larger family, but we didn't want, Bella had to go through so much isolation, so much time away from friends. We wanted a sibling for her so badly, so she had that comfort and that connection, and
that
it's
constant
just so sad.
connection.
Yeah, like Waylon and her were so close, and that's everything we wanted for both of them. And so it's just sad that that's been taken away from him.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't have any more kids. So, you know, he's got to grow up alone, which is everything we didn't want for either of them.
Mm-hmm.
But sorry, I'm still crying all over your screen.
That's okay. No, that's okay. Well, Kyla, thank you so much for this. I don't know, is there anything that you wanted to add that we didn't talk about, or that you wanted to make sure people knew? No,
this has been such a good conversation. I am so happy to share on here and, you know, share our story and just keep, you know, the main thing is just keep my daughter's legacy alive. And I'm really happy you invited me on here to share today. Like, that's awesome.
I can't thank you enough, Kyla, for that conversation and for your, I say this all the time about every guest, but for your vulnerability and just for your willingness to speak with me. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for sharing Bella with the world. What a beautiful gift that was that you and Bella gave to the world. So thank you so very much. If you're not already following Kyla and Bella's journey, please do so on TikTok. In the show notes, I will have their TikTok and Instagram handles. And sit back, watch some of the videos, because just prepare to have your heart full. And while you're at the show notes there, looking at those, there's also a link to my brand new website, buddyhugspodcast.com, be sure to check that out. There's all types of stuff there, and a contact me, and a little thing about me and about my book and about my public speaking and all that kind of stuff. So please feel free to go there. Oh, there's also a section there called Buy Me a Coffee. If you are so inclined to want to buy me a coffee, that would be incredible. Even just a few dollars go a long way with this podcast. It is my full-time job, and it pays less than a part-time job, let's put it that way. And I just want to keep doing this. I keep getting so many comments from guests and from listeners, just getting so much from the podcast. So that'd be wonderful if we could just keep this going. So I hate asking people for money, but give me some. Oh, that was awkward. Anyway, thank you for listening, and until next week, please remember to make your beds and take your meds. Bye.